Welcome to today's episode of Print to Pixel, the podcast where we speak with marketing leaders and technologists about how omnichannel marketing is revolutionizing the way that direct mail and digital marketing work together. My name is Dennis Kelly. I'm the CEO of Postalytics, the leading direct mail automation platform that makes direct mail marketing as easy as email. I'm excited today to speak with James Milsom of Hunter.io. James Milsom is the head of marketing at Hunter, an all-in-one email outreach platform helping founders and small businesses connect with their ideal customers. With over a decade of experience in SaaS marketing across the US and the UK, he's led product, content, and campaign strategy for companies in project management, HR, ticketing, cloud, and cold outreach. A lawyer turned marketer, James holds law degrees from the University of Reading and Warwick and is a chartered marketer with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. He brings a love of research, clear messaging, and customer insight to everything he does. Outside of work, he's a proud husband and gym enthusiast, Georgia Bulldogs fan, and can quote The Office with alarming accuracy, which we will put to the test here today. James, welcome to Print to Pixel.
Thank you so much for that intro, Dennis. That was lovely.
Excellent. Well, if we here at Postalytics are huge fans of The Office, and there are Office memes going around in our chat all day long and in our presentations. And so if we can sprinkle a little bit of Office dialogue here, that will make this podcast all the better. And so now, as an Office enthusiast, are you a fan of the original with Ricky Gervais or the US version with, of course, Michael Scott?
So much like my journey from law to marketing, I've kind of done it a little bit backwards. So I first watched the US version, watched it like 3 or 4 times in the space of a couple of years. Thank you, COVID. And then I recently watched the UK version with David Brown, which I thought was I thought that was pretty funny. But I prefer Steve Carell and everyone from the US version more so. How about you?
Same. I followed the same journey, and the US version just went so much longer and had so much more depth. They really did a great job, but both are very funny. Highly recommend anybody. And so, James, I speak with marketers all day long, and I have to say that I rarely speak with a lawyer turned marketer. So you've had a bit of an unusual career path, and I'm super curious, how has that informed you? And, take us through that journey. How did this all happen?
Yeah. So I started studying law when I was 16. In the UK, there's obviously a different education sort of system, and you pretty much early on have to decide what it is that you want to do for the rest of your professional life. And I just so happened to really enjoy politics, history, and it felt like law was a natural thing to get into. I studied at undergraduate level, so I did a 3-year degree specializing in constitutional law at the University of Reading, and I had not a gap year, sorry. I had a small period of time where I spent some couple of weeks in a law firm, and it was not for me. For anyone who knows me, I'm very cheesy. I don't really kind of fit into that sort of crowd, but I loved the process of understanding law, reading law, analyzing law, applying it, the importance of being able to articulate a very clear argument and being able to do so in a way that can win in a kind of head-to-head arena really kind of spoke to me. And so I spent a year kind of trying to really decide what I wanted to do after my undergraduate degree. And like any good student, I had no idea. So I just doubled down and I studied an international law degree with some human rights involved in there as well. And again, I didn't end up using it in, I guess, the traditional way, Dennis, if I'm being honest. How I used it really was to open doors. And I developed this ability to really build relationships. And when I say that I was able to build relationships, I mean that I came out of university after my postgraduate degree. I worked in a grocery store, really kind of like a non-traditional path, and I just so happened to kind of get to talking with someone who's a head of marketing at a local charity who provide educational courses. And so he offered me essentially an internship. So the stereotype of doing the coffee run, that was me. I did the coffee run. I literally stacked shelves with flyers. I went to events, and I really had a kind of a like a bootstrap experience, a journey into law. Sorry, into marketing, and it led me to really appreciate how important it is to distill long pieces of content into succinct, impactful messages. And so I went on this journey of an intern through to a marketing associate, focused then into digital marketing and content, then went into product marketing, and now kind of in the last 5 years, I've been in leadership roles, heading up marketing functions for two different companies, which ultimately led me to Hunter. So it is it's a non-linear, it's a non-traditional journey, but I think it's one that I'm sure a lot of our listeners probably can relate to, even if it's not, they studied law.
Yeah, for sure. I also thought that I wanted to be a lawyer when I was studying undergrad. And I was fortunate enough to have a couple of uncles who I was very close with who were lawyers. And I spent some time doing internships at their law offices.
Mm.
And that was enough for me to understand this wasn't my calling. And I was able to redirect prior to going to grad school. But I do believe, after having spent the last 35 years in doing business startups, that having a grounding in the fundamentals of law is incredibly powerful and helpful. And so I'm familiar with a lot of folks who have started in law and then moved into business, and it's been very, very beneficial for them. So I applaud you for not just following the path that you set out on, and really charting your own course.
Thank you.
So uh, you're now the head of marketing at hunter.io. Um, this is a whole new space, a whole new category for you from based on your career. So, what are you focused on here as we head into the second half of 2025? What are the key priorities that you're trying to instill?
The easy answer to give you, Dennis, would be LLM. Everything LLM. But I don't think that's the fair answer. If I were to step back and think about what LLMs are and things along that nature, for me, it's at Hunter. I would imagine a lot of our listeners have used Hunter, and it since 2015 has had a very strong presence in this space. But it's one of those products that it's kind of like the best kept secret that we all have, and we just don't really talk a lot about it as marketers and founders. And for me, I don't want that to be the case. It's great that I can say that line and it's true, but what I want to do with Hunter is continue the momentum that we have maintained for the last 10 plus years with our organic growth. A lot of our organic growth comes from people's awareness of our email verification, email finder, domain search functionality, which is fantastic. But for me, I want us to be able to supplement that growth with brand growth. And when we talk, I know that people listen in our space. The thing for me is that I want us to be able to capitalize on that and really address the elephant in the room, which is that cold email is seen as spam. It's seen as something that it's DOA. It's not necessarily in the healthiest of positions, and we can pick apart why that may be the case. But ultimately, for me, I want to help my team to lead the conversation about why that isn't the case and how you can make sure that uh, um, you're not adding to that myth. And so as we move into the rest of 2025, I want us to do more research. I want us to be helping more people, not to think about Hunter the product, but think about Hunter as a vendor that actually is going to help you. It's not about promoting the product. And that's why I love coming on to these sort of podcasts, because I get to talk nerd talk. I get to talk about data. I get to talk about what's working, what's not working. And it's all with the aim of actually helping listeners put what I'm saying into practice. It's not just lofty advice that, you need an email marketing guru to help you to execute.
Yeah, it certainly seems as though the current prevailing wisdom in B2B marketing and sales is that cold email is dead. Um, and as a career startup guy, whenever I hear prevailing wisdom, I always think there's another story here, and that counterintuitive approaches when everybody's going one direction, there's value in going another direction. And so, but that's the extent of my instinct in this category. So help us understand, why is it when everybody is saying that cold email is dead and that era is over, that SDRs and BDRs and other teams need to stop just hammering cold email and expecting better results? Tell us why that is not an accurate perception.
It's inaccurate, Dennis, because whether you admit it to yourself or I admit it to myself, the reality of what we do as people who are in revenue roles is that we build relationships. And that's been the case since the dawn of time, where there's commerce to be had. And I think when I look at cold email and that, is cold email dead? That question, I think to myself, well, you could ask the same of cold calling. You could ask the same of LinkedIn DMs. You could ask the same of direct mail. You could ask the same of Google Ads, organic search. All of these things could be seen as something that are not in the healthiest place. But the reason why we would all feel that is that we're looking for silver bullets. And when I say we're looking for silver bullets, what I mean is that we're not really paying attention to the basics. Yes, you can hammer out emails. Yes, you can go ahead and download a list of 10,000 people and just spam them. But you don't have to do it that way. And there are people in our space that perhaps would want you to do that, would give you the belief that more is more. I'm not saying that more is more, and I'm not saying less is more. What I'm saying is we need to pay more attention to the real basics of what we're doing. And that's why, to me, cold email is not dead. And when I think the basics, I think, who am I targeting? And when I'm thinking about who I'm targeting, why would I be targeting those people? Has my solution actually been built for those people? Is there a latent need that those people perhaps don't realize and I can capitalize on that? How am I going to connect my audience and my solution to really an effective outreach message? And when I think about this outreach message, is it going to be, and I should make this joke all the time and she hates it, but if I proposed to my wife the first time we met, we wouldn't be married. And so you need to think about with your outreach, am I going to actually go on a journey with this person, or am I going to expect to close a deal in the first interaction? You're not going to do the former. Let's be fair. So cold email is not dead. What it's in need of is really a wake-up call. It's in need of there's an elephant in the room moment, and looking at the elephant and realizing that you shouldn't be scared of that elephant. And actually, if you can pay it attention and you can do something that is more mindful of your outreach, your cold email won't be dead. In fact, it'll be more alive than ever. And I think that's a really eye-opening insight that we took from some research that we did earlier this year.
Very interesting. And, the anecdote as it relates to your wife, I immediately went to, there must be that's what she said somewhere in there in this whole line of discussion.
The turns table.
So, So on that topic and on that research,
Mhm.
one of the things that I've observed coming out of Hunter IO is one of the coolest campaigns that I've seen so far this year, which is Messaging Madness 2025. Um, so, you know, I think any type of contest is really fun. It drives engagement. Um, but I'm guessing that there is an underlying strategy here that is beyond just a short-term win in terms of getting people excited about participating in this. So help the other marketers here understand what are you really driving at with a campaign like this.
Yeah, yeah, good question, Dennis. So to answer that question, I kind of need to set the scene, and the scene really is this: at the beginning of the year, I'm surrounded by a very intelligent team, a team that loves data even more than I do, and has the ability to kind of analyze data pretty fast and come out with some very interesting insights. And so, one member of our team, Zemek, he went about this hypothesis that cold email is dead. It was just something that we've been playing with, this idea that, is this actually really a channel that still works? And in order to answer that question, we went out to over 200 decision makers, the majority of which were based in the States, and analyzed over 11 million emails from Hunter users. And that all culminated in the State of Cold Email 2025, which is something that listeners can immediately access. There are no forms to complete. It's available on hunter.io right now for you to take a look at. That research showed to us that actually 61% of decision makers still love cold email. And that's above cold calling and that's above LinkedIn. And so we we took that optimistic stat and then we reflected that with the reality that uh, those decision makers report 95% of the emails landing in their inbox as spam. And then the question was, well, what constitutes a good email? And the report goes into all the factors that make a good email. Now, those factors are things like being relevant, being personal, being trustworthy, and there are five different elements that come out of the research that tell you that if you have these different elements in your emails, you're more likely to receive a response or keep someone engaged in the process. But data is data, and that's looking at the past. And what I wanted to do when I sat down with our CEO, Matt Tharp, what I wanted to do was come up with an idea for us to really validate this insight. And the ideas that we came up with, something like a LinkedIn tournament, perhaps, where we say to sales reps, we say to marketers, we say to founders, share your best cold email, and we'll put it to the public. They can vote. Now, unfortunately, that's a good idea in principle, but how many people are going to share their secret sauce? Coca-Cola are not going to go out of their way to share really what goes into that bottle. And so, what I wanted to do was take that essence and really find a way to capitalize on um, the interest that we potentially could be getting around February, March time. Obviously, this wasn't a Valentine's Day kind of competition that you could run. That doesn't really work. But the majority of our user base sits within the US, and you know around March time, you're getting into the NCAA's March Madness tournament, and it just kind of all came together with this perfect blend of, well, we know that when you are personalized, relevant, and trustworthy in your copy of an email, you're more successful. But how do we prove that? Well, why don't we have people go head to head? Why don't we create scenarios that are very clear in the ICP that's being targeted, their pains, their jobs to be done, your solution, and the ask of the recipient? Why don't we take all that and put it into a tournament format? So we ended up with these four different scenarios. There was a growth manager, there's pre-revenue founder, an SEO manager, and a business strategy consultant. And we had hundreds of applicants. So we narrowed it down to the final 64. I'm not ashamed to tell you that obviously we don't want to, we didn't want to kind of run afoul of the NCAA. So we had the Super 16, the Open Rate 8, the follow up 4, um, and we just ran this tournament. We got everyone to vote on their favorite emails, and the great thing, honestly, Dennis, is that you had this blend of emails that some were long, some were using emojis, some were using what looked like War and Peace in terms of the content they were writing. And it just led to this real melting pot of different styles. And we had over 130,000 votes throughout the month-long tournament. The final four ended up getting they got a year's worth of a Hunter subscription. And the winner, who was an SEO manager, ended up winning $1,000 on top of getting that free year subscription. So it was this really cool concept that sometimes I know it's cliche, but I really think that luck is all about being prepared to strike at the right moment. And this moment kind of appeared out of nowhere in terms of timing, and it was fun. We even had an interactive bracket.
That is really fun. And the voters, what is that audience? Who are the people that were the voters?
Well, in the initial rounds, really, it was open to all of Hunter's users. It was open to the friends, the families, the colleagues of the people that were kind of added into the final 64, and anyone really that could find the tournament hub. We had a tournament hub, and so we did a lot of link building activity. We drove a lot of traffic there through cold outreach as well. We drove traffic through ads, really just to create momentum, create awareness. The goal, the thing that I enjoyed was that, unlike a traditional campaign that everyone listening is probably used to, yes, it would be great, and we did see people create free accounts and they converted into subscribers from this process. But it was all about tracking the visibility of Hunter, tracking our branded searches on Google going up and up. Traffic from LLMs going up and up and up. Our presence on LinkedIn just it completely blew up. And I think that it invited all sorts of people to really vote. And all it was take a look at this one email, take a look at this other email, they're head to head. Which one do you think is better? And that's a completely that's a subjective experience to go through, but we guided the entrants through how to write their emails by giving them clearly the scenario, and we had a bracketology to explain how we think that the best emails could come together. So it really was just a kind of like a connective tissue approach of taking this research, these couple of data points, and just putting it to the test with real people, which I think is something that we could all learn from in terms of validating our assumptions.
Yes, there's no question. I read research all the time. Every week I'm reading, some sort of research. But to take the outcomes of the research and then put them into practice in a fun way like this, that is also accomplishing all of these other brand building objectives, I think is brilliant. And congrats! I think it's a wonderful idea, and I'll be curious to follow. Sort of what comes out of this. Are there new insights that you have picked up from the process, and how does that translate into what happens as we get into the latter half of the year and into 2026? Super thrilled to follow the evolution here of this whole concept.
Thank you. Yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit, this podcast is about omnichannel marketing. So let's discuss the role of cold email in that, working in conjunction with other channels. So from your perspective, how do you see cold email working with other channels like direct mail, like digital marketing, and other types of initiatives, and does the role of AI begin to have an impact on the construction of these concepts and how they all work together.
Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack. I think what I would say is, as marketers, we always have to look at everything we do through the lens of it being a cake. And a cake has multiple layers. And if there are any more elements of that cake, those layers that are missing, it's just not going to come together. It's not going to be something that, is enjoyable to eat. And so I have always looked at omnichannel marketing as the default. I don't look at things in isolation. Sometimes that can be a bad thing when you try to group things together and it just doesn't come together. But I think when we're talking about marketing channels and sort of how they can complement one another, if you're not doing this, then you really need to start doing this now. And that's really stepping back and thinking, okay, well, what is the easiest and cheapest way for me to contact my audience? That's going to be digitally, and that's going to likely be cold email. So let's say that cold email is the foundational layer you have, and the cold email allows you to collect a certain number of people in your leads list, and then you can start to segment your leads list. And when you segment your leads list, that can easily help you do two things. One, it can help you to build ad audiences. It could also help you to build out direct mail target lists. And that's something that I've done before in my past when I've worked in cloud security. That's something that we did where we had a team of SDRs that I managed, and they would supplement the cold emailing that we were doing alongside cold calling, door-to-door canvassing, as well as using direct mail. And the great thing now that I wish that I had back then is something like what you have, Dennis. And I think that the abundance of data that we have on our leads and our prospects can be overwhelming. But if we go back to first principles, which I said at the top of the episode, and we think about our audiences and we find ways to narrow down those audiences to segments that you can create really sharp messaging for, when you send that DM, when you send that cold email, when you're delivering ads or perhaps reaching out via LinkedIn direct messages, you're creating a halo effect. And all of a sudden, you're not just relying on one channel. It's not one and done. You have multiple opportunities, multiple touch points. It really depends on your ICP in terms of their size, honestly, and their industry, whether it is something like, I think Gartner talk about this, where it's like 38 touch points because there are 15 people in the buying cycle making decisions, or it's, if the smaller end of the market around SMBs, where perhaps it's about 10 to 15 touch points. If you just use one channel and you just run that channel into the ground, you're missing opportunities that your competition absolutely are going to be using. So that's how I see cold email factoring into all of this, is that it should just be that undercurrent that is working all the time. And you're using that as the foundation to then use other channels to help you to grow alongside things like organic, PR, etc. In terms of AI, that's an interesting question. I think one of the lessons that I've kind of picked up in the last couple of weeks, honestly, because I don't know about you, Dennis, but sometimes I feel like I'm cheating on an exam using Gen AI. It's weird. But if you know your audience and you can define your audience, there's nothing saying, and we spoke about this in a recent blog around using AI for cold email, there's nothing stopping you from doing something like creating a synthetic audience, saying, Dennis is a founder in the SaaS industry. I've built this email for him. What I would like you to do is give me 6 or 7 versions of Dennis. It might be Dennis after a cup of coffee. It might be Dennis who is reluctant to look at that cold email. It may be Dennis who is going to have all the time in the world for that message, and create variations. And so then you can use AI to really help you to perhaps approach different angles to how you message. And you can do a lot more with using AI now than you probably could about a year ago, because it's just getting better and we understand prompting in a much better way. And I think the most effective use of it for marketers is really as a brainstormer. It's as someone to help you come up with A/B testing on subject lines, messaging, helping you to analyze data to identify patterns in the people that are opening or responding to your messages, and then coming up with ideas to help you to overcome those who are disengaged. And that's where you can start to, again, come back to the multi-channel approach. That's when you can start to think about different channels. You can use the first touch point as a checkpoint. Did Dennis reply to my email? No, but he opened it. Okay, well, I'm going to go and find him on LinkedIn. Great, I've sent a connection request. I can see through LinkedIn that he has interest in X, Y, and Z, the office. Maybe I will send him a little note, through direct mail that gives him something that will make him smile and maybe create a connection. Those are 3 touch points already that you just created, and an AI could help you with all of those to come up with ideas on how to really um, make the most of the data that's available to you and the channels.
Yeah, I think that there's so much there, right, in this whole concept. One of the things that we've done is invested heavily in building out our brand guidelines and put a lot of thought into our voice, our tone, the core messaging elements that we want to reinforce across all of our channels. And one of the things I'm finding AI very helpful for is just keeping those core principles maintained. And so, having that brand document understood deeply, and then using the AI to help brainstorm ideas with, consistency around the messaging and the core principles and the voice coming from the brand, I found to be very, very helpful. And so that because it's so easy to get, I think, fractured in the way that you build your story in different channels, because they act so differently and they pull you in a direction. And so for us, having that kind of those principles locked in an engine that is generating ideas for different channels has been super helpful.
Yeah, I think it's a really good use of AI to extend your ability to execute on any of these channels, and doing so in a way that matches brand is, yeah, it's really logical.
Great. Well, I think you and I could probably spend all day doing this. And I would actually love an LLM that could enable office quotes to be applied, instantly for any scenario. That could be a part of a cold outreach, right, across cold email and direct mail, and having some office first principles deployed in the content. Um, Fortunately, I was not able to come up with any other really good office quotes as we've gone along here. But it's been a lot of fun chatting today, James. And so, if the audience is interested in learning more, you mentioned the State of Cold Email 2025 report is available at hunter.io.
Yes. Yep.
Great. We will link to that in our show notes. And if the audience is interested in connecting with you, where are you active, and how do you prefer to interact with the world?
For office gifts. No, Dennis. So I can be found, and I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. It's just my name. It's just James Milsom. You'll see me pop up with my distinctive hunter orange kind of circle around my photo. I am also available over email, which is just james@hunter.io. And I think that anytime that someone wants to really have a conversation, I'm always open to it. I love talking to marketers. I've spoken to hundreds of founders over the years, and every conversation, much like today's episode, has always left me some pretty good ideas to take forward. So please do reach out.
Excellent. James Milson, Hunter.io. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Print to Pixel. It's been a real pleasure. I hope that we are able to collaborate down the road and bring these channels that are supposed to be dead and build awareness as to why they are effective. And so I've learned a lot today. I really appreciate everything that you've said.
Thank you, Dennis.